in the introduction of so the introduction of the moderator was inflated like the business balance sheets of most companies in the country today. Thankfully, we have three honest people who have worked on business biographies, so we'll be very free, frank, up close, and impersonal. I've had the privilege of moderating a session on public intellectual and the masses. What an irony! You see, coming from public intellectual and now talking about business. So anyway, this is the responsibility, and I'm glad that I'll be undertaking it. So as we move forward, we will try and explore. We'll try and explore how our writers have worked on the biographies that they have produced. In two cases, I can tell you for sure that the authors or the authorities, as we call the authors and the authorities are alive and kicking. In one case, which will be unique case study of somebody digging history and working on the book. So I think it will be the subtle art of how to do it, the kind of research that is involved, and how close you can get to the person about whom you are writing, and how independent you can stay of the influence of the person. So I first begin with Professor VENKATACHALAPATHY, whose book, The Swadeshi Team, is a fantastic document on historical research. India's independence movement is entwined there. The idea of the empire being struck back is there. So I'll ask Professor VENKATACHALAPATHY that some of us, those who may not have had access to his book, he just gives you a brief insight of what this book is all about and how the protagonist stands in his esteem today.
Thank you, Rahul, not only for the introduction, but also for having me here. This is my first visit to Dibrugarh. I have been to Assam twice earlier, but this is my first visit to a very important, but at the far east end of our great country. Before I actually respond to your book, to your comment, let me tell you something briefly about the book. The book is called Swadeshi Team, V.O. Chidambaram Pillai and the Battle Against the British Maritime Empire. As you all know, Britain was a great, not only a big empire, its empire rested on its naval power. Its naval power far outstripped any other country until the Second World War. It was not only in the navy, but also in the mercantile marine, that is the merchant ships. There also the British ruled the seas. So in this context, there was very little challenge. The British companies did not permit any other person, any other company to challenge them. In this context, in 1906, in the far end of India, the southernmost part, in the port town of Tuticorin, is anybody familiar, any student familiar with the name Tuticorin? Well, if you don't know, I understand. That's how, same question you go and ask anybody in Tamil Nadu, do you know Dibrugarh? They wouldn't know. This is how we have developed national integration in our country. It's very, very important that we learn about each other. And I as a Tamil, I always have a complaint that North Indians neglect us. So when I got this invitation from Rahul to come to Dibrugarh, even though my health was not quite conducive, I said I should be more sensitive. The first time I'm getting an invitation to a good festival from northeastern India, I should come, so I'm very thankful. Okay, so this is from Tuticorin, in that far off town. V.O. Chidambaram Pillai, I will call him VOC for short. He was a patriot, he was a nationalist, he was a follower of Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak. What he decides is in 1906, in the context of the Swadeshi movement, he decides that he is going to launch nothing less than a shipping venture. First he charters the ship. Then when he charters the ship, the British India Steam Navigation Company, the big, huge British shipping company, when it scuttles that chartered ship, instead of giving up, what he did was, he said, I'm going to launch a company. So he actually launches a company. It is called the Swadeshi Steam Navigation Company. And he buys 2 ships. He registers it as a limited liability company, collects shares. The foresight of the forerunning nature, the pioneering nature of this venture was that, even now I am told that in the southern part of Tamil Nadu, in the southern part of India, hardly any public limited company is registered even to this day. But way back in 1906, he registers a public limited company, raises capital for it, buys 2 ships, and is actually able to challenge the British shipping enterprise in that part. And that leads to a conflict with the empire. The British administration and the shipping company join hands together and crush the company. He is charged with sedition and is given to life imprisonments. Now to bring it to the topic of today's panel, one of the criticisms that was made about VOC at that time was that, Mr. Pillai, you should have, VOC, you should have kept the business. If you had not got into politics, this would have been more successful. But the point behind starting this company was not business. His idea was to challenge, politically challenge, economically challenge the British company. So I think our great patriot VOC would have been very happy, very unhappy to know that a biography of him would be classified under business biography, and along with people like Sangania and others. This would have been very surprising. But that is the story. I think we can carry that forward in the subsequent interventions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So much you can have the mic now. But once I switch it off, you can have it on. So we'll talk about this book on VOC much more because his subject was, when he was writing this book, his subject was long gone. But now we have SOMA here who has written this book on Sun Pharma as Honor Dilip Sanghvi. Have you heard of him? Yeah. So SOMA was lucky that he's a reluctant billionaire. I do not know what is this reluctant billionaire. Is he not proud of his, or is not too keen to earn money, or is not too keen to give an audience, but she managed it. She's a business journalist and she knows how to get things done. SOMA, on the book and on the subject.
Now, I think if I do a survey here, everybody is, even if they want to hear the name or they don't want to hear the name, they have heard of Ambani. And till 3 years, 4 years back, if I asked the same question about Adani, I don't think I would have drawn a lot of yes. But today, if I ask this question, I think everybody in this hall would have heard the name. Again, whether you want to hear or you don't want to hear. In 2015, something happened. A name nobody had heard crossed Mukesh Ambani to become the richest Indian. And that name was Dilip Shanghvi. So there was a buzz in newsrooms because a news trigger had come. That you have to do profiling. This is how newsrooms are. Suddenly a news trigger has come and you have to do the profiling. But everybody realized that is when the top editors actually started investing themselves into this man. That we had very little, nothing substantial. And this guy starts from a tiny, tiny shop in the by-lanes of Calcutta. He is not a student of science. He has not done any management. He is a graduate from a college you haven't heard of, some Bhawanipur College of Commerce in Calcutta. And in 30 years, what exactly has he done to cross the net worth of Mukesh Ambani? So, as news people are used to doing, we said, chalo, we have to classify him somewhere. So they started classifying him, okay, he can't be in the Tatas and Birlas because he hasn't inherited his riches. He's a Gujarati, but he can't be classified into the Ambanis and Adanis because his business model is not such, which depends on government connection. He is closer to Azim Premji and Narayan Murthy, but he doesn't do so much philanthropy at all, in that sense of the term. So he cannot be clubbed. And he doesn't have charisma, he doesn't energize the shop floor like Anand Mahindra and Sunil Bharti Mittal. So where does he fit in? Nobody knew his story, you know. It's not as if the pharma sector was not evolved. Pharma sector was pretty evolved by the time Shangvi got in. But the people who were really the leaders were all from chemistry background. So there was Parvinder Singh from Ranbaxy, there was Dr. Anji Reddy from Dr. Reddy, and there was Yusuf Hamid of Sipla. All of these people are chemistry people, proper. They had a technical background. So that is when a journalist starts sniffing that some incredible stories in there. And I have been talking to people. At the same time, I was reading Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And I was thinking, I wish I could read something like this on Dilip Shangvi. And I was telling his communication head, why don't you get an international journalist to do a story like this? I mean, a book on him like this. He said, are you mad? He doesn't give interviews. He's a very reticent guy. He wouldn't allow media people to come and interview him. So he's like, you're talking of something which is never going to happen. While I talk, 3 months into this conversation, I see in my spam a proposal from Penguin asking me to write a proposal for the book. I said, this is looking like some kind of epiphany. But by the time I contacted Penguin, they said we had asked for 4 other proposals from top editors and we've already got it. I said I would still like to submit the proposal. And I submitted the proposal. And the book got commissioned to me. After that began the real, it began. I mean, I got to know what I've gotten myself into. We went and I told Mr. Shangvi, are you willing to allow me to interview at least? He said, there is nothing to write about me as such. I'm not that interesting a person. I said, allow me to interview your people around. He said, you can come after 10 years. If that is the time my life would be what, right? I said, 10 years? I said, no, we are going ahead and doing an unauthorized book on you, but it would be great if you could. Now, I don't know, this is my guess. 7 months into research, 3 other books outside of my book got commissioned on him. So he knew 4 books were now being written on him. And he was probably getting a lot of messages. I had already met 50, 60 people by then. So he said, okay, please come. What do you want? I said, this is the list. These are the 72 people I want to talk to. If you could let me talk to them, that is about it. So there began this story of I trying to understand. But let me tell you how difficult it is. He is the A.R. Rahman of business. So, somebody asked Karan Thapar that Modi walked out of your interview. Was it your most difficult interview and challenging? He said, no. A.R. Rahman is the most difficult interview. Because even when Shangvi sat, my question was 150 words and his answer was 2 words. And he was supposed to write a book. And you are not even sure that what he is telling you, you can see through. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will come to the.
So can I conclude
Yes,
this
yes,
line?
yes.
So the thing is that I realized that a person is not going to change because I'm writing a book on him. So might as well change my approach. So I interviewed 172 of his co-passengers who had lived and worked with him to get to his story, and the result is The Reluctant Billionaire. Okay, thank you.
In due course, in due course he will be talking to the Sun Pharma people for the literary festival as well. Trust me, he will get us Sun Pharma on board.
I can promise you that's never going to happen. And if you go through me, I'm sorry.
So actually, the question was, when you spoke of the insider's job, it is JAIRAM Menon who has done an insider's job on his chairman of Larsen and Toubro, and he's come up with a fantastic biography. JAIRAM, all yours.
Thank you. But before I get to L&T and Mr. Naik, let me reintroduce Rahul Jain. He has been said to be curator and curator extraordinary of so many festivals. But actually, if you say it in 2 words, like Shoma would have said, he's a miracle man. It is a miracle that he's been able to get this wonderful festival together, and all of us, writers and other forms of the imaginative ecosystem, all of us owe a great debt of gratitude to him.
We are digressing.
So how do I proceed? Okay. Now, my biography is of a person. You heard of Larsen and Toubro?
90 years. Yes, more than
L&T?
L&T?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the present CEO, who's now very much in the news, he once said that he's the boring CEO of a boring company. Now that is Mr. Subramanian. As I said, 90 young man. Mr. Naik does not seem to think that his job is boring. He's an engineer, and he finds there's a lot of drama and excitement in engineering, because we've built a bridge across the Brahmaputra. So all of you all should be a little more aware.
Secretariat. The secretariat too. The dispute secretariat of the L&T.
Dispute. Achha. And the tallest tower in the world, the Statue of Unity, the bullet trains, the coastal road, the Konkan Railway. Now, there are a lot of things that the company has done. And Mr. Naik, the subject of this biography is unlike Dr. Sangvi, he is not reluctant. He is up there and open. Aja, jisko aana hai, aja. Something there. The trouble with that kind of person is that you miss the wood for the trees. Because Jogi Bolo, whatever you say, whatever topic, he will give you one chapter. But how do you put all those chapters into one book? That was a challenge. And secondly, we asked him, and he was very clear, what do you want from this book? You all are not going to be engineers. We don't want 100 different competitors to Larsen and Toubro. What we would like to do is that all of us, we don't have to be engineers, but we can all learn from the lessons that are there, contained in this book, and become better at whatever we are doing. Better professionals, better in our personal life. So those are the lessons that we see ensconced in this book. One lesson that I'll say is that you have to pour passion into whatever you're doing. Don't do it halka sa ha, hoga to hoga, nahi hoga chalega. No, you have to be involved 100%. And then you will see the results. So, or be interested. He's got four, Mr. Nayak has got four qualities that are important. Passion, first. Conviction. Be sure that what you're doing is the right thing. Devotion. Go beyond the stage of hard work. It's devotion. Devotion is when you have, you're devoted to a temple or a mosque or whatever religious gathering. So, devotion to what you're doing. And finally, commitment. That you've made a commitment, I will do so much work, so many hours of work, and live up to that commitment. So those are the four mantras of success of Mr. Nayak, and by extension of anyone who wants to achieve greatness. So with that, I will get deeper into the book later. I will hand it over to the little man, Rahul.
So, as I said at the start of the panel, these are three different takes on biographies. Professor Chalapathy's subject was no longer alive. He was an insider. He had worked closely, JAIRAM has worked closely with, still working with his subject, that is Mr. Nayak. Soma's case was different, business, journalism, out there, sensing opportunities, trying to reach out somehow. It's a question of desperation. As a former journalist, I can still identify how we want to just get it done. But my question would be now to Professor Chalapathy, how did you encounter a subject like him? I mean, just because you are a man of history, or when was it you realized that he is the man who will be my subject?
That happened when I was very old. I was 14 years. That's when I first encountered him in his absence. VOC is a local here. In the state of Tamil Nadu itself, he is very well known. Every neighborhood will have a VOC street, VOC park, VOC nagar, VOC school or whatever. But I was studying in a CBSE school, and in the history textbook, in the section on the freedom struggle of India, there is no mention of VOC. That really angered me. From that moment, I decided that I should read more about him. I started first going to libraries. I found some material then, in 1982, which now don't exist anymore. Then I went to the archives. Somebody told me that the archives will have material. When I went to the archives, they said, schoolboy should not come here. They drove me away. But I continued, and when I joined college, the very first year of college, my idea was to, I studied BCom. The idea was to get a job in a public sector bank, do no work, and do writing in the weekends. That was the idea. But the very first month after joining college, I went into the archives. And within a few weeks, I knew that history was going to be my profession, and I will work on VOC. So from there, step by step, from the Tamil Nadu archives, then I went out into the field. Then I went to Delhi in 1985. The same experience. Nehru Memorial Museum and Library would not permit me because I was only a undergrad student. So from there, I proceeded, I then did my PhD at JNU, then went to various libraries across the world. So the situation was that since VOC had died in 1936, which was before my father was born, so much had changed. And there was also a peculiar situation which led to the absence of proper records. After I told you, VOC started this company and it was crushed. And because he was given double life imprisonment for sedition, which is people have only one life, right? They have one life. But he got 2 life imprisonments. So his friends and associates they panicked. So they destroyed whatever material they had. And to make it worse, 2-3 years later, the British collector who was responsible for crushing the company, he was assassinated by people who were close to his intelligence records. Then I was able to find some higher level correspondence. Then I was able to look at the Government of India records. I also had by pure stroke of luck, by searching hard and fast, in 2006, I traced the grandson of the assassinated collector. So I went, I saw him in Ireland. It was one of the epiphanic moments in your life. So based on this kind of material, tidbits, so roughly based on about 1,500 or 1,600 little bits of information, I wrote this book 42 years later. So the search for vivos made me a historian, made me a citizen, realize what a person should be. It also led to my own self-discovery. So this is how it happened. I also became friends with his family, but because of the peculiar circumstances, because he spent a long time in prison, and by the time when he died, India was still not independent. So none of the people who knew him at that time when the shipping company was started, they had all either died or they had forgotten, they had not recorded anything. So only through fragmentary material and through hard search, finding some little corpus of letters, I got this material. Based on these little tidbits, I have written this story. The story is now it's about 450 pages. I wrote it during the pandemic because I thought until that, I would continue the search forever. Then I realized when the pandemic came, life is short. So that's how I wrote this story. And there was nobody to, correct me. And this one bit of information I should add. Whatever I have said, I have documented it. I don't think anybody can come around and dispute what I have said because there's nobody around who knew what happened. And the documents themselves, many of them have been lost. What I had photocopied or made notes of in the 1980s. If you think the British were ruthless in suppressing us, our own fellow people, compatriots, have been even more negligent. Worse than being ruthless is apathy and indifference. This is what has led to the destruction of all our records. And so I think I am fortunate that I started working at a time when at least some of this material could be retrieved.
I think it's an incredible story. I think future researchers, teachers would probably profit from your experience and your perseverance as well, as much as the life of VOC. How did you, Soma, you crack that Sun Pharma or Dilip Sangvi code? I mean, now let's get into that secret.
So when I started talking to people around him, that's the first time it occurred to me that forget Shangvi, who is not going to let his story out, his people around him don't know his full story, which is why so many people you had to trace. And I was like a Eureka Forbes, you remember, salesperson? Yes. So I'm walking to somebody's place, knocking their door. I say, you used to be Shangvi's neighbor, right? And they're looking at me. So I've done everything like that. But interestingly, you spend enough time. I learned my way, and I call it dimensioning, which is measuring up a person. Now, if I can just digress a bit, what are biographies? Biographies and biographers would agree that you start living a life which was not yours to live. And that is a very, very challenging process, a process of self-discovery and discovering the person in ways that he doesn't know himself. The process of dimensioning is looking at this person from up close, then going vantage point, looking at him from angle X, angle Y, talking to this 150, 172 people who are relevant people in his life, started giving me a perspective of this expanded view, which I will call, it's a little too much, but universe's life review of that person, which when Shangvi read parts of it, he didn't agree with, but that's okay. Because autobiographies people write because people assume that writing on their own self is very easy. They think they are experts of their own life. But Fairhurst, he has said it very nicely. He said, we are our own blind spot. We are the only people we don't watch. So autobiographies, unless they are full confessional, which very few are, biographies are the one which actually can be a universe's life review, and which I call dimensioning. And I step out of my limited vantage point. I assimilate the vantage point of all these 172 people, and then from that expanded viewpoint, I start writing. So there are 172 co-authors that are not named probably in the book. But coming, if you are interested in his story, what I found, or do you want to take another one?
When did he, research? Yeah.
So what is the secret recipe?
Yes. You are in our camp now.
Yes. So, at the cost of oversimplification, because the book is over 500 pages, so at the cost of oversimplification, there are 4 points I will touch upon, which are, I think, very crucial to his success, and which he doesn't want many people to know. Number one is, when he started, the Indian pharma market, 80% was antibiotics, okay, and 20% was your lifestyle diseases, basically your diabetes, your psychiatry, and all these kind of things. But he figured out, one prescription of antibiotics is a few rupees, because it is only given to you for 7 days. One prescription of psychiatric medicine is for a lifetime. So one prescription is a few lakh rupees, because it is a repeat prescription. And what worked in his favor, I don't know whether it's foresight or it is luck, is that India went through, like many other countries, what is called an epidemiological transition, which means from 1960s to 1990s, that 80-20 flipped. Now 80% of drugs sold are in the lifestyle diseases segment, while antibiotics are only 20-30%, where all the other Ciplas, Ranbaxys of the world were there. The second thing, I think this is too young a generation, but those who are in 40s and above would remember that, when we were young, we went to family doctors. Super speciality was not the thing. Everybody had a family doctor who would tell you, okay, you have cough, take this, take that. That was the business model for most pharma companies. While you would know of medical representatives who are marketing force of pharma, when Shangvi started creating super speciality within his medical representatives. So that was a very different way of dealing. So earlier, if Ranbaxy had a MR, medical representative, he'll cover the whole of Dibrugarh, irrespective if it's a cancer doctor or is a gynac. But how confusing it will be to talk to a gynac and cancer doctor, oncologist in the same breath. So this is a guy who said, if this profession is getting super specialized, my MRs have to be super specialized. But the most important and the secret recipe was his marketing brilliance, which is, these MNCs, you will know that they gift a lot of, the corporate gifting is there, they will be giving doctors dinner sets, these kind of things, Shangvi's guys were very different. They were the people in the doctor's wife's kitchen. They were helping the doctor's children getting admission. Shangvi's boys were there when the doctor's wife was delivering, and Shangvi's boys were there when the doctor's father's funeral was getting held. His boys, thousands of boys, had forged emotional bond with thousands of doctors. And I remember when one of the Ivy Leagues came to do a case study on him, he said, no, we don't want a case study on our model. When a marketing manager tried to codify this, he threw it into the dustbin. Because he didn't want probably all of this codified in any form. But this is something I have seen that, emotion is at the core of business. And that is what he managed. Because when I spoke to doctors, I don't know, doctors were shedding tears of emotions because when 5 boys are there to give kandha to your father, that's not a thing you forget. Even if he's a businessman, you will remember. But this is what I found at the heart of success of his motto. That his boys were serving, like if MNCs, I would say MNCs were serving ice creams when the doctors were thirsty, but his boys were serving water when the doctors were thirsty. This is what I thought was the core of his success.
JAIRAM, as an insider, I mean, your bordered this biography is almost, if I accuse you of it being hagiography, how will you counter it? Because you are an insider's job into L&T, writing about your own chairman. Why do I have reasons to believe that you have been impersonal?
True. I know this is a dilemma that biographers face. I'll just tell you the story of Jobs. Jobs has a brilliant biography written by Walter Isaacson. Probably one of the most wonderful, most celebrated biographies going. And he began doing it when Jobs was not well. As he took time to work on the biography, Jobs began progressively getting less and less well. When he finally completed it, Jobs was on his deathbed. And Jobs asked Isaacson, is there anything in the book that you would not want me to read? And Isaacson, being truthful, he said yes. Then Jobs said, good. Then it will not look like an in-house job. But unfortunately, I am not Isaacson. I am not as good a writer, and neither is Mr. Naik's Jobs. So, there are many shades to any character. There are shades to every character. There are shades to you and me too. But the biography of Mr. Naik is an instruction manual on how to be, as I said, a better person, a better professional. And for that, there are negatives, but you need to focus on the positives, which is what I've done. So, as I said, if you want to learn to be a better person, you have to begin by pouring passion into whatever you're doing. Now that nobody can argue with. Nobody can say, no, don't, chalega rahe. So you have to pour passion into what you're doing. You have to communicate well. Naik is a great communicator. Much more than anyone else I can remember, anyone in the corporate hierarchy of L&T. Incidentally, I am one of the few writers, probably the only one, if I can claim, who've been writing right from for the CEO, for the head of the company, right from the days of Henning Hall Classen, the founder. I was fortunate to be around. I mean, I was a young recruit then when he came back to be the chairman. And so from Mr. Henning Hall Classen to all the CEOs, Mr. Kulkarni, different personalities, and then Mr. Naik. So he has told me, what I've learned from him, is that you need to communicate very well. The better a communicator you are, the better a CEO, or whatever profession you choose to do, the better person, better professional you will become. So communication is not difficult, as I said in the previous session. You need to work on it. And another lesson that I've learned, and all of you can learn, is to introspect. A daily introspection. He would introspect. We had an office in Andheri, which is one suburb of Mumbai. About 10 kilometers away, he used to stay. His house in Pali Hill. So he would, on the way, he was being driven, didn't drive himself. So he would work on all that had happened that day and see whether he could have improved and give himself a self-audit. have I done as good as I can? Can I do better? Next day, do that. So he would do that. That is another thing that all of us can do and learn. I have been meaning to do it. I have not got around to doing it. After I finish, go back from Dibrugarh, maybe I will devote myself. But all of you all can begin. You all have more time to yourselves. So begin with introspection. Be an honest auditor of yourself and say, oh, tomorrow I will do better. And then progressively, don't look at the scorecard immediately. How am I faring tomorrow? No, that won't work. You have to give yourself about 3 months and then watch yourself. So do that. 3, do not be afraid. Mr. Nayak was unafraid. There happened, L&T is a manufacturing company, and when you are a manufacturing company, you have to have unions. And the union in L&T was that time headed by the Shiv Sena, which is a militaristic, muscular union. So most people would be scared of facing the union. So the third shift is the night shift. The night shift, the productivity dropped because nobody worked. I mean, very few people worked. Those who wanted to work would work, otherwise they'd all go and either rest or Powai Lake was next to the works. They would go to the Powai Lake, fish, collect some fish, bring them back, get them fried, and have a good dinner. So that was happening, and when Nayak came and became the foreman, he was told, Daumat, after 8 o'clock, do not enter the heavy workshop. It's dangerous. So most people would take the line of least resistance. So things have been going pretty good, and let it continue. But Nayak being Nayak said, I will go at 9. So he went at 9. And then he went at 10. He went at 12. He caught a lot of people and got them out and got them to work again. So courage, whatever, either physical or mental, courage is a very important aspect. You need to develop within yourself the ability to face the consequences. And success will come in due course.
Yeah, I'll bounce off one question of VENKATACHALAPATHY and one from SOMA, and then I'll leave the floor to the audience. What do you think CBO's life would teach our students, or what should they ideally learn from CBO's life?
I think VOC's life is what one can learn. Is that first you should think big. Indians, it has been repeated so many times. We don't think big. We are not ambitious enough. Once I happened to teach for a year at National University of Singapore. You talk to any student there, what they are talking about. Or you talk to a Harvard or a Yale student, they are not thinking about, becoming a bank clerk and not working and, writing during the weekends. That is not what their dreams are. They are dreaming. So here you have in 1906, in the remotest part of the country, where the entire atmosphere is hostile, and you are surrounded by people, petty-minded people, who are discouraging you and pulling you down. There he is thinking big. And he doesn't end with thinking big. He actually tries to implement it. He actually realizes it for a while, for a period of about 2 to 3 months. Not a single shipment of goods goes on any British ship between Tuticorin and Colombo. For 3 months he is able to achieve it under the most hostile business environment, if you may say so. The entire powers are arraigned against him. So there, at that time, you show courage. And he also inspired many people. I traced the life of 3 brothers who met him when they were young. One was 17, one was 18, and another was 20. The 3 of them, until the end of their life, they sang his praises. Because this man had won the respect, the love and affection of people around him. I think that would be a wonderful litmus test. How many people around me respect me, I don't know. Probably when they see my back, they will be very happy. If we are able to do that, both in objective terms, achieve something big, think big, work towards it, and secondly, you are able to win the love and respect of people around you. I think this is the big lesson that I carry. Don't think I am making a sales plug. This is actually a very moving story. Despite the fact that I have written it, the story is such a moving story that beyond the limitations of its author, I think the story has come out very well, and I've had the experience of seeing people literally break down in tears after reading the book. Or, I'm sorry, not reading the book, after getting the story from this not very well written book. Thank you.
Nicely said, huh? Soma,
Sometimes I'm doubting whether you're VOC reborn.
so after that we can talk.
Sure. Well, I would really encourage you to read the book because there are very nuances. We try to reduce everything to these lessons and everything, but life is way more complex than that, but I'll try to do my best. Number one is, in this age of instant gratification, this man's life is a living experience of what a marathon approach can do in your life. He was planning 15 to 20 years in advance and working quietly on that, not seeking any media attention, not wanting to give it out. So one is that marathon approach, it really works. Second, I think, and very interesting, so he lives a very modest lifestyle, but not out of morality, very much out of practicality. So I asked him that, why would you live now that you can really live way better than this? Well, why would you do that? He said, I don't want my lifestyle to dictate my business decision. Basically, if I make a 20-story palace, tomorrow what I decide in my business may be to sustain this lifestyle. That is not what, I don't want this as a compulsion. Third, making emotionally painful decision if it is demanded. See, when he started, he was from very, very humble background. So he started with 3-4 of his friends as co-founder. But as the company started growing bigger, and this is a story none of us knew, okay? When the company started growing bigger, there came a time when the IIM professionals started coming in. They said that we are not going to report into these people. So there comes this decision, and he was in this Gita moment, right? When the SPJN who was the person who was at the helm of SPJN told him one day that, listen, I'm telling all 5 of you, you are co-founders, write vision for Sun Pharma, what Sun Pharma will be 10 years hence. And then he took all the papers and showed, said, are these the vision? You are the only one with the vision. And so how painfully he had to depart. And I was listening the story from their perspective, because the perspective of the co-founders was that हमने अपने हाथों से सींचा है इस company, but they have to leave. So there are emotionally painful decisions you have to make at times. Number 4, when he started, like Chalapathy said, there were too many people, too many detractors. They said, you want to start a pharma company? Do you even know what you're talking about? You don't have sciences background. You don't have management. Who's even going to listen to you? So apparently he said this, and this comes from a friend of his who was present, that he said, it doesn't matter what I have. What matters is what I do with what I have. And I think with what he had, he hasn't done very little and very less. So these are the 4 lessons I think I will go with.
So we open up the stage for our audience. Questions? Please identify yourself and then ask. Please feel free to ask. And you must ask.
Please do ask. Please do ask.
See, they've come all over just to be with you.
This is pressurizing me.
Yeah, I mean. And there are management students here. They are going to work for these companies. Yeah, this is Center for Management Studies.
Oh.
Volunteer, please raise your hand. Pass on the mic to all. Please raise your hand. You must have a query after such a lively discussion. Right?
There are no wrong questions.
Yes.
There are no foolish questions. There can be foolish answers.
Yes.
Yes.
You all are immune to anything.
Okay, anybody from Jayankata, yourself? Ranjit Rai sir?
Actually, as I said, all this.
The 90, he asked about the 90.
Each of the stories was so inspiring. We came in a little late. So I was trying to Google and try to find out the name of the person that you were talking about.
O. Chidambaram Pillai.
V.O. Chidambaram Pillai. And you say that his company worked from 1906 to 1936.
It was started in 1906, closed down business in 1910, liquidated in 1911. He died in 1936. So the company ran barely for 2.5 years. So the reason why we are talking about him is not because his company succeeded. It's because his company failed. Because it was a patriotic enterprise. And the company was run under the greatest odds. The British India Steam Navigation Company, the local administration, the provincial government, everybody ganged up together to crush this company. So that is the story.
When he speaks, you need to switch off. Yeah, now.
No, but actually it's such a pity that with all of us, we had not heard of this great man. What an amazing story, really. And talking about the madam, about Sun Pharma, and it's incredible how he expanded, keeping such a low profile.
There is strategy there as well. Because the moment you are seen as a threat. And you know what I was told? And there are so many, it's corporate history, but it's not reported. He actually became richest because he bought out Ranbaxy. And the two became, when they merged, it was the largest company, he became richest. And he started giving me calculation and how Forbes has got the calculation wrong on getting him the richest, Because the Mukesh Bhai is still, if you see this calculation. I said, I'm not interested in that. But very, very difficult to understand this. In 1990s, Parvinder Singh, who was running Ranbaxy, they had tried to acquire Sun Pharma through they were creeping acquisitions basically. Yet not fully hostile because but the trigger had not come, but they were increasing their stakes. So a lot of people around him, of course he will not come and admit this, but a lot of people around him told me that, this could be a factor, that this was coming and this would have happened. It took 2 decades, but as I said, he's a marathon man.
If I may,
Yes, please.
They say that fortunes in the United States, like the Rockefellers and all of them were robber barons. You cannot achieve that scale of wealth without being completely ruthless. Now you've been
And unscrupulous.
in the Indian context, and this is of course for all of us, is it possible to be ethical and be successful? To study this gentleman so closely, is it possible to be an ethical tycoon?
Not a reduction, but ethical.
from the examples we have, he is one of the closest we get. Because his business, as I said, is not a crony capitalism business. When he was richest, more than 55 to 60% of his business was coming from US. So, and this pharmaceutical business is not like real estate, not like, not even telecom license, not, of course not like the oil and gas, and not like, I'm sorry to say, to some extent infrastructure, but mostly these telecom, the sectors. But the pharmaceuticals, it's very difficult to only work on government connections and get this. Which is why Shangvi is, but having said that, the business model is like that. But we also have to learn, I must say that Ron Chernow, who's a biographer, well-known biographer in US, said that, I am very partial to dead subjects. Because they don't have angry relatives, they don't, they can't sue you. I think we need to work on these subjects because US is a very structured place. There is so much of documentation, so much of that, even after people are dead, you can go and dig out so much. In Shangvi's case, I realized that unless we do this primary research, these incredible stories are lost. But on the reader's side, we have to learn that these heroes, whatever, are human. They come with their imperfection. So they would have asked their friends to leave, which would, when we read, we will see, oh, this is not fair. But that fair or unfair is completely up to the reader, I admit. I said this was his problem. This is how he has gone about it. So about your question on ethical and unethical, I would say that model-wise, he is one of the closest we get, but somehow he is not interested in his story being told, and in the artfully curated world we live, we only know what people want you to know about them.
Yes, please.
Now, the subject that you have written on Mr. Menon is a little different. He was not an entrepreneur. He was a highly successful executive. Am I right? Or because L&T was not started by him, he was not a promoter. He started from the shop floor, if I'm correct.
That's right.
And he reached the top level. So how would his story be different from these two entrepreneurs or people who started their own business?
So many of the businesses in which we are now in, thanks to Mr. Naik, which is businesses that we were not there earlier. These were for all practical purposes like startups. They were the software industry, which he said, which is technology-related software. That was software and startups. And also, there was some amount of, enormous amount of entrepreneurial risk that he used to take in all his business decisions. So that made him a bit of an entrepreneur.
But then the board obviously gave him a completely free rein.
They didn't. It was a board, so it was not a one-man show. They did not give him a ring, but he proved himself. Like for instance, he set up a new facility in Hazira, Surat, and the board objected. Said no, it's huge amount of money. We can't. Okay. He said okay. He got it done piecemeal. This much is okay. He got it done. He got that through. Made money and showed profits on that investment and then got more. So you're right, he is not a technically pure definition of an entrepreneur. He won't because he was employed. But I think it's a little more difficult in his case to be able to achieve what he did while working within the straitjacket of an employee. So, but as I said, as we've all said, they are not saints. They all have their dark sides. But then, what Nehru told Attenborough when he made Gandhi, the film Gandhi, he said, whatever you do, don't deify the man. He's too big a man for that. If you make a person into a god, then he can do anything. There's nothing to stop him. So you have the problem that every man faces, and then to rise above that and achieve success, that is the greatness of the man.
So each of these was a fantastic case study.
Yeah.
Each of the examples that you have given here were a wonderful case study. His history, the single man person, and Mr. Nayak, what an incredible sharing of experiences. So thank you all very much.
So I think the story continues. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.